Yeah, first slide. So, as FDO kind of started around this IoT genesis of introducing clouds and endpoints to each other, uh, and allowing an interaction or an interoperation between them that was both zero trust and secure. And as we at Dell got more into edge computing really isn't IoT, but it's taking a lot of the same constraints around it in terms of security, physicality, lack of knowledgeable or skilled or trusted or equipped people to actually be doing onboarding. Same similar things around the concept of open networks or cloud-based networks connecting into cloud control planes, but now getting into more general purpose computing. But as edge is sort of the combination of the IoT space with kind of the physicality and those constraints, and more of data center things in the respect that we're talking more not embedded, curated devices, but general purpose devices. Edge kind of brings the two of those together. So I always show kind of a progression for starting at IoT, and the stuff that we do in Edge uh, came from the IoT space that we liked that, and now we're looking at saying, well, hey, do these same characteristics still apply as we move into the data center? So next slide. So the point here of this slide is that the stuff that are going on in data centers or modern data centers now are starting to approach the same kind of problems that we see in edge. One, of course, is around the concept of zero trust. Uh, Zero trust is more and more an important concept. And one of the main tenets in zero trust is that you don't just trust your physicality, you don't just trust your network. So a lot of things around installation and onboarding right now in data centers rely on concepts in which there is trust. You're in a trusted environment, you're in a closed environment, you only have trusted people in those environments, and we can trust the network in those environments. And those, number one, are a little bit more not true as things start to extend out, but two, they're kind of a violation of a lot of the tenets of zero trust. So there's a lot of other things, comparable between edge and IoT and data center, supply chain security, needing to do positive device, attestation, tamper detection, even hardware detection, things like that. Mutuality of security is basically just saying there's kind of two sides to that equation. One is proving to a device or proving to a network and proving to an infrastructure and data center that it can trust this new device, but also proving to the device that it's actually in a good state and it can trust the network and it can trust the onboarding services that it is associated with. But the last one, so the first one I think is very important, establishing zero trust. Don't just trust everything that's going on because you're in what you believe is a trusted network. Therefore, nobody on that network can ever lie to you. Your Pixie server can't lie to you. Your DHCP server can't lie to you, etc. Don't make those assumptions. The last one I think is equally important, and we're seeing this a lot. So zero touch provisioning and automation at scale. So data centers, larger data centers, what do they call them? Giga centers or something? These massive AI data centers that just have tons and tons and tons of machines and racks. So the need to automate the setup and provisioning of both machines in those data centers, but also even the machines and the racks that are put into those data centers are oftentimes stood up and installed by third-party installers or companies outside of that data center, companies like Ahead that specialize and put stuff into racks and ship those into data centers. So the ability as this stuff really starts scaling up to be able to automate that. And of course, in the scale out of that, relying that it's no longer, having an IT person installing a couple machines into a rack. But when you start installing hundreds and thousands of machines into racks, or even racks themselves into a data centers, you're now relying on third parties. These are rack and stack personnel people. They're not IT people. They're not necessarily, trusted in a specific environment with any security credentials like you would if an IT person was doing that. So, long story short, the challenges that we have solved with FDO in the edge and with IoT are looking more and more like some of the challenges that are still there in data centers. So, next slide. So this next slide is sort of the big mantra that we, think about when we think of FDO. FDO is two things. It's zero touch and it's secure. And it's very hard to design. And there's also another one which is also late binding, which means this stuff can be established in the field automatically and not necessarily baked into the factory. But zero touch and secure are the two main mantras of FDO, and it's very hard to get them both. It's very easy to create something which is automatic. PXE is automatic. I can PXE install, but there's nothing inherently secure about PXE, or you're installing the network, or uh, you know, to have personnel that is responsible for manually credentialing systems. You now have to give security credentials to those people to do it. You now have to build systems that are open to the person who has their fingers on that keyboard is the one who is allowed to specify what and how that machine is to be credentialed. So the long story short here, as data centers get bigger, as more personnel, more untrusted personnel is responsible, we can't necessarily give them the security, and yet we need to assist with the automation, and we need a deterministic way to allow the automation to be proven to be secure. We just can't say, you know, talk to the network and install whatever the network tells you to do. So those, I think, are why FDO is very important in the data center. It is becoming more important in the data center as scales move up. Move to the last slide. So I do want to say, and I can't obviously talk about any products or projects or announcements or anything Dell's doing, but Dell has obviously started using FDO in this product called Native Edge. Native Edge is an in-band system. We run our own factory OS, our own operating system actually does onboarding and whatever. But we have recognized the importance in FDO in the data center and the power of it as a tool. And one of the things that you will be hearing more about in months to come is that Dell has doubled down on the use of FDO and saying, yeah, we really like FDO to be able to manage systems, but system management isn't just about what goes on in the plane of the computer itself, in the software we put on it, in the operating environment, but we also have these BMCs that actually manage these systems. And just as we would like to have systems that are zero touch, if we are having, and you probably see a million tools like Dell Open Manage Enterprise and other things, but if we're having these tools manage devices and they're doing so through different management planes using things like Dell's iDRAC, which is our BMC that we put into our Power Edge servers. How do we have to do that today? Well, now you need to credential your BMC to talk to your management plane. So what is a great way to automatically connect that BMC to a management plane in a way that's zero trust and automated? FDO. So Dell is actually have a project that is being worked on and will be delivered shortly. You'll be hearing more about it, where we're taking FDO and we're putting it into the BMCs of our systems. And this is extremely targeted at data center applications where people are building racks, they're shipping racks, they're having third-party ship racks, they're going into giga centers, they're being installed by third-party personnel, and the expectation is you power those racks on in those data centers, and now the BMCs can connect to the out-of-band management orchestration planes, do the credentialing, and allow the type of out-of-band setup, credentialing, monitor, telemetry, everything that you can do without needing to go through and manually set up and provision every single one of those systems by a person, which would then have to be equipped and authorized to do so, and then equipped to authorize and turn back down to the management plane and to put those addresses and credentials in and everything. So, I think the question of this, is there a place for FDO in the data center? Absolutely. And, just the proof in the pudding behind that is to look at what Dell has seen ourselves in use of FDO and seeing the advantages and the work and the investment that we're putting in to take this, to the higher level in our newer up and coming products, because we see the value there.
Thanks, Brad.
That's all I have to say there.
Brilliant. Any questions for Brad on data centers?
No, I mean, I'm not shocked that it's being used in the data center. When I was at Red Hat, I had a whole lot of people complain to me, why can't we use this in the data center? To which my response was, well, you can. I'm just paid to focus on Edge. Edge is where we need this desperately. And, Microsoft and VMware are, mandating things like TPMs for data centers now. And so, all the infrastructure is there. And, assuming all the, manufacturing side of things are handled, it's almost zero cost because, all the functionality is already there. So, win.
Makes total sense.
So I just want to add in also logistically. So our BMCs are actually ARM based, and you saw how quickly it took me to compile that Go FDO client for ARM. Obviously we have to put an FSIM in there, but that's basically the effort that it took us to enable FDO functionality in our out-of-band management system.
Yeah, so in the case of the BMC, you're essentially treating the BMC and that onboarding process as independent to the main computer, the servers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a Dell designed BMC or is that a commercial BMC?
So Dell has something called iDRAC, which is our big branded high functioning. It's more than just like an open BMC. It does all kinds of stuff with, I don't even know all it does, with all kinds of monitoring and telemetry and cooling and liquid cooling management and all kinds of crazy stuff well and beyond what a typical BMC. It allows you to manage the RAID controllers on the devices. It's a pretty substantial high value add thing that we put in all of our PowerEdge, or make available in all of our PowerEdge servers, which are our data center grade server equipment.
It's an actual chip.
No, it's a board. It's based off of I don't know whose ARM chip. Honestly, actually, I do, but I probably can't say it. But it is a module that we have like a connector for it, and I think I don't even think there's many PowerEdges that go out without it. But yeah,
Like a DCSEM mod, OCP DCSEM module.
Yeah. Yep.
Following 1.2 to some degree, what are the big headline features of 1.2 over 1.1?
That's the delegate capability that Jeff briefly mentioned at the beginning. Jeff, do you want to do a 1 minute flyover on that?
Basically, the idea is that you can have a multiple delegate keys that all onboard to a single user key. So if you're a large organization, you can have the ordering people manage the owner key, and you never have to use the owner key to onboard. You can have delegates that you create statically at different locations as your onboarding locations all over the world in your organization, and then you can have each of them be authorized to onboard on behalf of the owner key, and that adds into the protocol. It's a static credential that now can pull into the protocol and extend logically extend the ownership voucher trust to let a delegate onboard. That's the big feature.
And we're also leaning a little bit stronger into some PKI infrastructure, allowing use of X509 certificates and chains to be able to delegate specific actions to specific delegates or onboarding services. So it's meant for larger and more federated operations. And then when you start doing
that was one thing that we had a couple of customers request, the ability to be able to use that sort of stuff. So that's perfect.
Well, thanks, folks. I think that draws us to a conclusion on all the material. We covered a lot of ground, so thank you for those that hung in there.